Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, Governor Gavin Newsom addresses the state of California.
And I know this at the bottom of my heart, the best is yet to come. Thank you all very, very much.
His stance on homelessness, affordable housing, and asylum seekers at the southern border. Plus, the San Diego County Board of Supervisors votes to sue the Trump administration over its treatment of asylum seekers. More on the decision. And this week marks 1 year since the deadly mass shooting at a high school in Parkland, Florida. How the survivors are coping. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The San Diego County Board of Supervisors voted today to sue the Trump administration over its handling of asylum-seeking families. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero has the story.
Chairwoman Diane Jacobs says the Trump administration created a public health and safety crisis by releasing asylum-seeking families into the community without providing critical resources or shelter for them. In the past, immigration agencies have helped connect asylum-seeking families to sponsors and other resources, rather than releasing them without guidance. Supervisor Nathan Fletcher said the board doesn't want to abandon asylum seekers. The vote happened in closed session, a couple of weeks after the board approved a new migrant shelter in San Diego. The vote stands in contrast to the Board of Supervisors' decision last year to support the Trump administration in a lawsuit against California state sanctuary laws. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Congress has a deal to avoid a government shutdown later this week. It includes far less than President Trump demanded to pay for a new border wall. But today at the White House, the president suggested he's likely to sign a final bill.
I don't think you're going to see a shutdown. I wouldn't want to go to it now. If you did have it, it's the Democrats' fault. And I accepted the first one, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished because people learned during that shutdown all about the problems coming in from the southern border. I've always accepted it. But this one, I would never accept if it happens, but I don't think it's going to happen. But this would be totally on the Democrats.
Another partial government shutdown would begin Friday night. The bill includes $1.4 billion for new physical barriers and a reduction in ICE detention beds. President Trump has been asking for more than $5 billion for a new border wall. Governor Gavin Newsom delivers his first State of the State address as the leader of California. Affordable housing and homelessness were at the forefront of his speech.
Just over 4 weeks ago, I stood there in front of this Capitol and I pledged to defend not just the California Constitution, but I pledged to defend the California dream. And today I want to talk to you about how we can do that together.
Governor Gavin Newsom delivers his first State of the State address. Immigration and border security were issues at the top of the list, just 1 day after announcing he will be pulling hundreds of National Guard troops from the southern border.
So let's just state the facts. We are currently experiencing the lowest number of border crossings since 1971. In California, like our nation, our undocumented population is at the lowest level in more than a decade. Some 550,000 fewer in our state alone. Immigrants, both here legally and those without documentation, commit crime at a lower rate than native-born citizens. And those families, those women and children seeking asylum at the borders are doing so legally.
The 40th governor of California then shifted to wildfire risks, months after some of the worst fires in history devastated parts of the state, which are being blamed on negligence by Pacific Gas and Electric.
We're all frustrated and we're angry. It's had to come to this. PG&E did not do enough to secure dangerous equipment or plan for the future.
Newsom has announced he's formed a team to make sure the utility company keeps serving its customers and to make sure the victims are taken care of.
We will ensure continued access to safe, affordable power. We will seek justice for fire victims, fairness for employees, and protection for ratepayers. We will continue to invest in safety, and we will never waver on achieving the nation's most ambitious clean energy goals.
Governor Newsom also addressed issues close to San Diego, such as homelessness.
Too many on the streets are suffering from bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, paranoia, many of them self-medicating with drug or alcohol addictions. And as a consequence, our homeless crisis is increasingly becoming a public health crisis. Last year, we had a hepatitis A outbreak in San Diego. Recently, there was an outbreak of syphilis up in Sonoma, typhus in Los Angeles. Typhus, a medieval disease in California in 2019. So we need to work together as a state and regions to focus on prevention, rapid rehousing, mental health, and more permanent supportive housing, because at the end of the day, shelter solves sleep. Housing and supportive services solve homelessness.
And the lack of affordable housing.
You know, in a recent survey, came out last week, 61% of young adults in California said they can't afford to live here. 61%. California should never be a place where only the well-off can lead a good life. Too many cities and counties aren't even planning how to build. Some are flat out refusing to do anything at all. That's why I committed $750 million for a major new incentive package for communities to do the right thing. $250 million in support for cities and counties to update their housing plans, to revamp their zoning process and get more housing entitled. $500 more in grants when they achieve certain milestones. Look, if we want a California for all, we have to build housing for all.
Despite the problems facing the Golden State, the governor says the future looks bright.
But I believe in the remarkable talent assembled here, and I believe in our state, and I know this at the bottom of my heart. The best is yet to come. Thank you all very, very much.
Now that Governor Newsom has delivered his first State of the State, did his message align with his campaign promises? How did he distinguish himself from Governor Jerry Brown? I talked about this and more with Mesa College political science professor Carl Luna. So today was Governor Gavin Newsom's first State of the State address. How would you describe his tone?
I think it was optimistic, trying to set a realistic vision of the future while laying out a fairly ambitious laundry list of things he wants to do, differentiate himself from the past governor, and take some advantage of the good times while they last, while there's still money in the Treasury.
And right out of the gate, Governor Newsom, he was critical of President Trump and President Trump's policies, especially having to do with immigration. Let's take a listen to a bit of that.
This border emergency is nothing more than a manufactured crisis, and California will not be part of this political theater.
So why so much focus on the White House during a State of the State address?
Well, today the president kind of sucks all the life out of the room anyway. You can't ignore him as the big elephant literally in the room. The governor is representing California as kind of like the bastion of the resistance like Jerry Brown did, and he's trying to take that mantle. He's not running for president, but it gives him kind of a statesman-like position within the Democratic Party to help set agenda moving forward, and we'll see how that plays out in 2024 and 2028.
And speaking of setting an agenda, Governor Newsom also talked about some policies to address some real problems, such as the lack of affordable housing, the rising cost of health care. Was he consistent with his campaign message?
I think what you're seeing is a little bit of, now that I'm in office, I have to step back a little bit. He wasn't looking for immediately universal health care, but develop a bargaining for pharmaceutical companies. No longer rent control. Let's work with cities that have to get more affordable housing out there. He's got to pay attention to the clock because we already had a shortfall in state revenues this year. There may not be as much money for him to do the things he wants to in his next couple of years, so we can't raise expectations too rapidly, too high. What was interesting is while he hit health care and housing, education, homelessness, he didn't talk about crime, didn't talk about prisons. Those were always old tropes in California politics.
Any surprises?
I think that the amount that he went after President Trump early on, and the fact the president was in El Paso yesterday helped to tee it off, was a little surprising. But I also think it was surprising he didn't go even farther with that. I mean, he talked about moving troops off the border, the National Guard. I think you will see more ambition on him to take on the president when the president responds to this. I'm waiting for the tweets to come out attacking him as a California socialist, and then the game gets really underway.
And whenever you talk about Governor Newsom, there's always that chatter of whether or not he will eventually run for president. With today's state of the state, any clues?
I think if he's going to be credible on the national stage, he has to hang in for at least the first term and then look to see what happens after the 2020 election. We have a lot of people with very limited experience at the national level running this time for the Democrats. So he'll probably step back, and if there's a brokered convention, a possibility. But I think he's really looking to build his base in California and launch it from there. I mean, Jerry Brown was like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the Democratic Party. He was big in the 70s, and then he came back, and this last 8 years, he couldn't run for president, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Newsom's got a chance, but it's probably later in the 2020s.
And Carl Luna, thank you for your insight, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
KPBS has asked county law enforcement agencies to release records related to police misconduct under a new state law. KPBS reporter Taryn Minto says a response from the San Diego County Sheriff's Department shows its records won't come cheap.
The Sheriff's Department says it'll cost at least $354,000 to fill part of KPBS's request. KPBS asked for records related to when a deputy lied, committed sexual assault, or used force that caused great harm or death over the last 5 years. A Monday letter from the department says the fee will cover the cost to redact records from dozens of use of force cases. The department previously said it requires special equipment and software for those redactions. It cited a court case permitting the agency to charge the requester for that cost. However, a partner of the law firm Shepard Mullen says that court case is currently under review by the California Supreme Court. Shepard Mullen is representing KPBS in a suit against the Sheriff's Department over a separate records dispute. Taryn Minto, KPBS News.
Several San Diego police unions sued to stop the release of some records under the new law, but the Deputy Sheriff's Association was not among them. KPBS has filed a motion to argue in support of releasing records in that case. Joaquin Guzman, the drug kingpin known as El Chapo, will likely spend the rest of his life in prison. Guzman was convicted today on 10 counts related to drug trafficking. Dozens of witnesses told the jury how Guzman used violence against those who stood in the way of his drug cartel.
El Chapo was the man behind the curtains. He pulled all the strings. He directed all of the production, the smuggling, the transportation, distribution of billions upon billions of dollars worth of narcotics into the United States. El Chapo was the leader of the Sinaloa cartel. The cartel responsible for pushing thousands of tons of cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, fentanyl, marijuana into our communities, our neighborhoods all across America.
Guzman was one of the most wanted men in the world. He escaped from Mexican jails twice before being caught in 2016. He will be sentenced in June. We're days away from a new event to honor first responders. 4 years ago, local sportscaster Cal Kraska was shot outside of his home. Now he's launching an event celebrating those who saved his life. He recently spoke to KPBS about his recovery and his gratitude.
And the breaking news we lead with tonight involves our friend and co-worker, sports director Kyle Kraska, who was shot outside his Scripps Ranch home late this afternoon.
You know, I was shot 6 times in my driveway, bullets that went through my chest, okay? There's no way I should be alive. I just shouldn't. Since my outcome of this story was so remarkable that I'm still here, I mean, I really shouldn't be. I should be dead. Then it's my responsibility to give back to the community, and it's such a need we have for blood. This is San Diego's blood drive, celebration of heroes blood drive, and I'm inviting everyone. This is the time that they normally have the greatest need, and we have an even greater need now because what used to be a Chargers blood drive went away a year ago, 2017, And so therefore there was that blood drive normally in December, gone. And when there's a need like this and you make a plea to them, and when they connect with your story, which this community truly does, they rally, man. I mean, I am so thankful, so blessed, and just so excited that San Diego has come together like this in such a short period of time. As soon as they got my call or my email, they were just yes. I mean, literally, it's the fastest yes I've ever got in my life. Every day of my life, when I wake up, I think about the heroes that saved my life. And if not for them, I'd be dead. I want the star of this event to be doctors, nurses, surgeons, police, fire, EMTs, all people that saved my life and who save lives every day and very rarely get recognized. And one thing I said 4 years ago, after I was okay to speak publicly, I said, I will never, ever, ever be able to thank this community enough times for what they did for me in 2015. I needed 14 units of blood, day one. You know, my liver, my lung was destroyed. I should be dead, and it's a miracle I'm not. And a lot of people said after that, they said, you know what? You're still here because you have a purpose. I think this is the purpose.
CBS 8 says all spots for Thursday's blood drive are booked. Dave & Buster's will donate a portion of its sales on Thursday to the local Red Cross. This week marks 1 year since the deadly mass shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. The shooting is one of the deadliest in U.S. history. Associated Press reporter Josh Rapungal shows us how survivors are remembering that tragic day.
The sirens and the sirens and the sirens, and it was nonstop. And it was terrifying.
Crying and confusion as the Parkland tragedy unfolded. Parents reuniting with children rushing out where 17 were killed. One photo in particular captured the fear and panic on two mothers' faces.
In that moment, it was two moms comforting each other. It's panic, it's frustration, it's anger.
It became an iconic moment in defining another chapter of school shootings in America.
I never really looked at the picture. I just kind of wanted to pretend like it wasn't even me.
Both mothers' children ultimately were safe, but the bond between the two women in the photo did not survive. They're at odds, like the nation itself, over gun control.
This community is like fractured into two factions now. The people who are working on school safety and making schools like into fortresses, and then the people who are working on improving gun legislation.
One of the mothers, Kathy Rush, declined to be interviewed with the other.
I saw a familiar face, and she had fear on her face.
Politics aside, the two still feel the pain and fear captured on camera.
And I said, oh my God, Kathy, what's going on? Are you okay? And she said, I can't reach my son. I can't contact him. And then my heart just started breaking. I said, oh my God, if she doesn't know if her son is alive or dead, and she's here crying and can't reach him. And how many parents that we know are losing children right now.
I want people to know that they don't want that to happen to them.
Rush couldn't reach her son when the photo was taken. She's still angry.
And I want everybody in the whole country to see that picture, and I want their hearts to break for all the families here. Because guess what? This happens all the time. Eventually it's going to happen in your community too.
1 year later, the wounds of tragedy still fresh. Josh Rapungal, The Associated Press, Parkland, Florida.
He's been an outspoken advocate for gun control since his wife, former Congresswoman Gabby Gifford, survived a mass shooting. Now, Mark Kelly is running for Senate. Kelly is also known for his years as an astronaut. He talks about his motivation for entering politics in this campaign video.
You know, I learned a lot from being an astronaut. I learned a lot from being a pilot in the Navy. I learned a lot about solving problems from being an engineer. But what I learned from my wife is how you use policy to improve people's lives.
Kelly is running as a Democrat for the seat formerly held by Senator John McCain. Republican Martha McSally was recently appointed to serve until a special election in 2020. Many California foster youth often find their lives disrupted when they move through the system. State lawmakers are trying to give them more stability. Current and former foster youth gathered at the Capitol this week to support a bill that would keep foster students enrolled in the same school even if they move to another home. Lawmakers say many in the foster care system change schools an average of 8 times, losing up to 6 months of learning with each move.
That stability means that they'd be able to remain with their teacher, they'd be able to finish out a school year, some of the bonds that they have made, because we know that many times their bonds are shattered with constant movement through the foster system.
The measure would also ensure caregivers are reimbursed for school traveling expenses.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, congressional lawmakers come to a tentative deal on immigration. But will the president sign it? Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
An advocate for refugees in San Diego has worked for years to improve the lives of the region's newcomers. And KPBS reporter Taryn Minto says the nonprofit director just received a big financial boost to continue fighting.
A California foundation named San Diego's Ramla Saheed as one of its 9 fellows to receive a $250,000 grant. The founder of the Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans was one of about 250 people nominated for the Leading Edge Fund Fellowship. Saheed says she'll use the money to hire more staff and empower refugees to become leaders.
And so we want to build the power, leadership, and capacity of newcomer families to kind of be loud in the state around the things that people need to thrive.
The Leading Edge Fund Fellowship comes from the Rosenberg Foundation. The organization's president says he hopes to see Saheed's vision to grow refugee leadership expanded across the state. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
Get ready for another weather change. Rain is on the way, and it may stick around for a while. Meteorologist Erin Calandra has tonight's details.
Good evening. It's kind of the quiet before the storm. We're seeing some pretty nice conditions right now in San Diego County, but that's going to change. There's a storm that's moving in off the Pacific. It's going to bring us a lot of rain. You can see to the north of us, they're already dealing with some rain, some mountain snow. Well, on Wednesday, there's going to be another storm driving in off of the Pacific, and that one is going to be more powerful. It's going to spread to the south, and we are going to see rain for a couple of days. For tonight, we're at 53 degrees, partly cloudy conditions in the metro, Oceanside at 43, and Mount Laguna coming in at 36 degrees. Now that rain, again, it's coming in to the north of us. The storm is, and the rain is drifting to the south. It's going to stay mainly right in the foothills, the interior areas to the coast. The deserts, the mountains, we will see very little activity. So San Diego tomorrow, not much sunshine. This isn't what we're used to. We're going to see mostly cloudy skies with rain. We're not talking showers. We're talking periods of heavier rain. San Diego at 63 degrees, Ramona at 60, Borrego Springs at 65 degrees. Here's the timing, 3 p.m. As kiddos are leaving the school, you'll notice those clouds are moving in, and then here comes the rain. Again, see how it's going to stay pretty much to the western side of the county, and it's going to continue for hours. So once it's all said and done, how much rain will we see? In San Diego, we expect to see about 1/4 of an inch of rain, and interior areas could see about 1 inch. Now, this is through 6 a.m. on Thursday. As the rain continues on Thursday, those numbers will jump up to 3/4 of an inch for San Diego. And in fact, before it's all said and done, we could see about 1 inch in San Diego. The end of the week, it's going to be nice and clear, drying out. We'll have some sunshine. Here's the extended forecast. So we have to get through Thursday, leftover showers on Friday with sunshine. Then temperatures a bit cooler. We'll see the rain in inland through Friday, a break on Saturday with some showers returning on Sunday. And in the mountains, same pattern. On Sunday, we could even see a little bit of snow mixing in. And in the deserts, expect to see sunshine Friday through Sunday with temperatures only in the 60s. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
Cardiologists in San Diego want to remind you to keep your heart healthy this Valentine's Day. Heart disease remains the #1 killer in San Diego for men and women. Nearly half of all adults live with heart problems or high blood pressure. Dr. Lori Daniels is an American Heart Association volunteer and director of the Cardiovascular Care Unit at UC San Diego. She says most cases of heart disease are preventable, and good heart health starts with knowing your numbers.
We like them to know their blood pressure and make sure it's not elevated. We want them to know their cholesterol and make sure they don't have high cholesterol and not know it. Also, it's important to take a look at their cardiovascular risk factors in general. Make sure you don't smoke. Are you getting heart-healthy aerobic exercise each day?
Free blood pressure screenings will be available Thursday at dozens of locations throughout San Diego County, including all YMCAs. To find a location near you, visit livewellsd.org. Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, climate change and habitat destruction. We'll take a look at the state of biodiversity in San Diego after years of drought. And on Midday Edition, the next episode of KPBS Rad Scientists focuses on your body odor. Meet the San Diego scientist who's embraced the nickname Dr. Armpit. Tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.